son, detained at Guantanamo since 2006. All those who seek justice.
8 years ago today, the first men branded by a pseudo-legal designation as enemy combatants were brought to the U.S. prison at Guantanamo Bay. Thus began the nightmare of illegal detention, torture, and extrajudicial power that has marked January 11th as both a tragic day in the history of our Constitution and a demonic day in the spiritual life and sacred calendar of our nation. By all rights, we should not be here, not at least in anger and sorrow, condemning the continued operation of the prison. No, we should be here in celebration of its closure, as President Obama promised nearly a year ago today. But the prison has not closed. It won't be closed by the deadline Obama set. It won't likely be closed, they now tell us, anytime this year. And if forces of reaction fed by the manipulated fears of the public and indulged by the feckless equivocation of President Obama have their way, it may never be closed. It may instead become a fully institutionalized feature of American power, our democracy's own offshore Gulag for the perpetual waging of cruelties that our laws should not permit and our conscience should not allow. But we cannot and we will not let this happen. So we are here again today, calling for Guantanamo's immediate closure, in sorrow and in anger, but also with a sense of hope, nourished by the untold millions, if not hundreds of millions, in this country and around the world who share with us this vital demand. We may ask ourselves, why is Guantanamo still open? And in our answer, receive guidance in the message we must bear. We know well the reasons stated by our president, which now have the hollow ring of excuses. That Bush had left a legal mess that takes a long time to clean up. We know well the sad politics at play, how the opportunism of the right, the timeless lure of tough guy rhetoric, the cravenness of Congress, and the menacing howls of Cheney have ensnared our institutions in moral paralysis. And we are painfully aware, as the last few weeks make plain, of the fragility of the American psyche, well trained to turn to vengeance as a salve for fear. But these things do not explain the broken promise of a president who challenged us to do great and difficult things and pledged to lead us in that courage. The root of the failure lies in how President Obama has himself obscured the stakes of his decision on Guantanamo and thus absolved America of the responsibility to halt and atone for the evil it represents. Obama has described Guantanamo as an administrative problem, an embarrassment, a foreign policy liability. It's all those things, but he's never confronted Guantanamo for what it truly is, a moral disaster and a political sin. It is only through this understanding that we summon the fierce urgency of now required to close the prison. A second reason that Guantanamo remains open, I truly believe, may seem just the opposite. That we as a country think too often only of ourselves, our politics, our security, our reputation, our traditions. Vanished from the question of what Guantanamo means for America is the question of what Guantanamo and Bagram and other secret prisons has meant for those held captive within them. By now we well know or should know the harrowing tales of kidnapping, torture, and psychological torment. As men now released from Guantanamo share their stories with the world, we are learning more of the remarkable humanity of men who have every reason to be wholly cynical, but who are not. But the human dimension of America's crime seems barely to have registered in the halls of power and within the broader public, as if there are no victims except abstract injuries to principle. In this way, we also avoid responsibility. So I say to Obama that we owe it to the men who have endured and still endure Guantanamo to close the prison and all others like it. We owe them as well an apology, compensation, and the prosecution of the perpetrators. Only by accepting the wrong we have done To others do we summon the conviction and the humility to begin to try to set things right. So what is our message at this moment? First, that our president can no longer be praised for good intentions. It is now his Guantanamo, and he must fulfill those intentions with action. We must continue to call on his conscience while also calling him to account, not just the failure on Guantanamo, but for a shameful pattern of sustaining the policies of his predecessor. We must say to the media and to all Americans that the political right has it exactly wrong, that Obama has not been too much a jurist, but too little one. He has been reckless not with our security, but with our Constitution. We must finally think of and defend the humanity of the men detained. We have learned their stories. We have carried their names. Some are present with us today, being held by their lawyers. We have carried their names throughout the streets of Washington, into the Supreme Court, into jail when we have been arrested, and into trial when we have sought to dramatize the grotesque deprivation of their legal rights. 2 years ago, Frida captured this solemn purpose when she said, "We will continue to carry these names until the men at Guantanamo can themselves walk a clear path through war politics, vengeful rhetoric, and insatiable violence." To that I add presidential hypocrisy as a final and important barrier. Our struggle continues.